Hey folks, this is Rhykker, bringing you a first look at Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls patch 2.20. On February 19th, Blizzard gave us our first look at this upcoming major content patch. And the best news is that it's coming soon to the PTR for testing. Now of course this is a Blizzard soon, but nonetheless it looks like a lot of the stuff promised at BlizzCon will be making its way into 2.2 and more. This new patch won't be seeing as many class balance changes as previous patches have. However, it's looking like content will be king. Sets will be a major focus of 2.20. In total, we're looking at 10 new or improved class sets, including 3 entirely new 6-piece sets, and redesigns and bonuses added to old sets that simply weren't competing with the popular endgame sets. We're talking about Zunimazas, Raiment of 1,000 Storms, Rolands, Talrashas, Innas, Natalias, and Immortal Kings will all be either revamped or improved in order to try to make them compete with the likes of Rykkers, Marauders, Sunwukos, Akarats, etc. Based on what we saw at BlizzCon, the changes coming to the Raiment of 1,000 Storms monk set will enable you to dash far more often, and this may solve the problem with the set. The 6-piece bonus releases 3000% weapon damage after you use Dashing Strike. However, you simply can't dash often enough to make that compete with Sunwukos. The BlizzCon rework showed that they increased the Dashing Strike charges to 5, and makes it so that every third hit with your spirit generators grants a charge of Dashing Strike. This could potentially make attack speed a lot more important to monks, which would add some nice variety to the endgame, which basically across all classes does not favor attack speed. The 3 new sets are for Wizard, Barbarian, and Demon Hunter, and the Wizard one is focused around the Slow Time ability. Slow Time applies damage over time and buffs certain other abilities, namely Arcane Orb, which may possibly allow us to see a return to the Frozen Orb Wizard. Wizard desperately needs an endgame build that can compete with Firebirds that is not fire-based. The class that is defined to be an elemental specialist needs to stop being locked into a single element. The new Demon Hunter set seems focused on using generators to keep your discipline up, which then buffs your generators and multi-shot. I'm really not sold on this idea, given we already have a viable endgame multi-shot build, and frankly would rather see that applied to a skill like Strafe, something underused. And of course, as we all remember I'm sure, the new Barbarian set brings back the Rend Whirlwind Barbarian, nuff said. Apart from class sets, 2.20 will also be adding over 15 new legendary powers in the form of gems, armor, rings, and more, and 2 examples that they've shown include Barbarian Boots that make Ground Stomp cause an avalanche, and new Demon Hunter Gloves that cause Rain of Vengeance to deal increased damage. And yes, you are seeing strength rolled on Demon Hunter Gloves. We're also getting some updates to Adventure Mode, including new rift layouts and new bounties. The rift layouts will be based on pre-existing maps from the campaign, such as the Fields of Misery and the Festering Woods, but they'll be making use of those tile sets in a randomized fashion. This should afford even more variety to our rifting. Further, Blizzard is adding over 20 new bounties across Acts 2, 4, and 5. And thrown into the mix is a new type of bounty called Exploration, which involves exploring an area and finding people to either save or kill. I'm not really seeing what distinguishes this from any of the other MacGuffin bounties, and I also don't really understand the need to be adding new bounties to the game, or their choice of acts to add them to, because it looks to me like they're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, let's face it, people do bounties for only a handful of reasons. 1, they're out of Rift Keystone fragments, in which case they just want to do the fastest and most efficient bounties. 2, they're farming the Ring of Royal Grandeur, in which case they're just doing Act 1, and none of these new bounties are being added to Act 1. Or 3, you're farming for a Pride's Fall helmet, which you get from Act 3. Again, one of the acts that will not be receiving new bounties. I don't think I've ever heard anyone complain about there being too few bounties. It seems like Blizzard is trying to entice us to do bounties more, but if that's the case, they need to add more reward to them as well. Otherwise, it's just rifts, baby. Now again, there won't be any major class updates, but there will be some fine-tunement of overall class balance, including buffing certain underperforming skills, and some quality of life improvements, like finally adding an icon that shows a number of active sentries that a Demon Hunter has. Thank you. Apart from that, Blizzard saw how the new goblin types were a huge success, so they're adding 3 new types again. So we're getting even more new types of goblins. We have the Gelatinous Sire, which splits into smaller goblins. Of course, this is a reference to the Gelatinous Cube and the various ooze monsters from Dungeons & Dragons, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Then we have the Gilded Baron, that will doubtless just drop a ton of gold, which I guess is nice, but given how pretty much everyone is sitting on millions and millions of gold at this point, likely hundreds of millions, I'm not sure how they're going to make this impressive without upsetting the balance of the current gold schema. Then lastly, we have the Insufferable Miscreant, who, quote, has friends to help him run interference. I don't know about you, but most goblins I run into have friends that run interference when I'm trying to kill them. So again, I'm interested to see how exactly the mechanics here will play out to make these exciting to find. Still, I'm staying optimistic because I am happy with every single new goblin type that they introduced, so I have faith that they'll be able to make these 3 new types work as well. Second to last, 2.20 will be adding a cosmetics window. Basically, for all of you who have wings, or the pre-order pet, or that Warlords of Draenor flag standard pennant thing, all these things take up stash space. Well, no more. They will now be unlocks that will go into the cosmetics window. This is a great change, and further, this menu will allow us to customize things like portrait frames. It's looking like you'll be able to go back and select any previous Paragon portrait that you have unlocked. Because we all know that just adding stars and stars upon stars wasn't really impressing anyone. Now, something that is pure speculation based on this is that Blizzard may at some point implement a microtransaction system just for cosmetic items. This seems like a lot of development effort put into something that really isn't all too significant, at least in the grand scheme of things. However, I know a lot of people would be willing to spend a little bit of money on purely cosmetic changes. We're not talking pay to win here, but I've known of people who have purchased StarCraft II Heart of the Swarm just to get the Blade Wings. Never played the game, never intended on playing the game, just wanted the Blade Wings. So if a cosmetic microtransaction shop gets added to the game, this will not be the end of the world. This will allow Blizzard to monetize Diablo 3 in a way that has allowed Team Fortress 2 to continue to be a sustainable game years and years and years down the line. The video gaming landscape has changed since the 90s. Pay models have changed, evolved. If Blizzard could be monetizing this game, we live in an era in which games that are able to bring in consistent revenue over time are the ones that will receive the most developer investment. Blizzard is running a business, not a charity. They have employees to pay, and every employee they're paying to work on a game that is not getting them more revenue is not a sustainable business model. Diablo 3 can't continue to be funded on World of Warcraft subscriptions. But again, this is pure speculation. I'm just raising these points so that if Blizzard were to ever add the microtransactions, it is not a system shock. Now, the last point brought up in the 2.20 preview was that Blizzard is switching to a new file format. For as long as I can remember, they have used MPQ format to compress and store game files. I remember back in the days of StarCraft 1 using an MPQ extractor to pull out unit sounds. And what Blizzard's doing now is moving away from MPQ and creating their own proprietary file format. While I have nothing against this in principle, Blizzard put a lot of words and a lot of PR speech into selling this idea to us. They say that MPQ had a number of technical limitations. They say the new format has improvements that directly benefit players, including things that will prevent errors during installation, result in faster and more reliable patching processes, and, quote, the ability to hotfix game client data. At the end of the day, what I'm reading from this is that Blizzard is looking to thwart hackers. It's as simple as that. And if that really is the reason, I wish that they would just come out and say that. Map hacks, speed hacks, bots. I'd be lying if I said I completely understood how these things worked, but it obviously involves some degree of extraction and analysis of game files. Since MPQ is a format that has been around for the longest time, I'm sure hackers know it inside and out. Blizzard's proprietary system would pose a new hurdle to hackers, and I really think that's a sentiment that everyone in the community can get behind. At least everyone that we want in the community. But of course, that was all just speculation on my part. It could be that their motives are exactly as they said, but the most important take-home message from this really is that while this is something that they clearly will be implementing in all their games going forward, why would they bother overhauling Diablo 3 entirely to accommodate this new system if they weren't planning on continuing to invest considerable resources into the game? It wasn't long ago that we heard this rumor that the Diablo 3 team was completely gutted, and it was all doom and gloom, and people were bringing up the fact that it took 6 months to see a small content patch released. Well, I think today we've just gotten a lot of news that runs counter to those rumors. Apart from the file system, this 2.20 reveal has shown us that Blizzard has been working on a future content patch. Plus, the final nail in the coffin for the rumors about the Diablo 3 team being gutted is that Blizzard just recently put up a job posting looking to hire a new art director for Diablo 3. Now, art direction is not a position you need to just keep the servers running, make a few balance tweaks, or apply bug fixes. Art direction means new content. Why would you be hiring a new art director if Diablo 3 has no future? Now, it's possible that a lot of people don't really understand how Blizzard and its teams operate. There isn't just one Diablo team all working on the same thing. They split up their development efforts. I can guarantee you that they've had people working on the 2.20 changes for a considerable time. They've got one team working on 2.20, they had a different team working on the current patch, and it wouldn't surprise me if they have an additional team working on a future expansion. I get that when things get quiet, when development seems to be moving really slowly with Blizzard, that it's easy to lose hope, it's easy to feel despair, it's easy to think that Blizzard is abandoning the game, but need I remind you that things got pretty quiet before it was revealed that Blizzard had been hard at work on Reaper of Souls. That wraps up this video, thanks for watching, check out these other videos, and if you enjoyed this one, share it with friends, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders.